Okay. Well, good morning, everybody in the UK. Good evening, everyone in China. And good day, everyone in between. Welcome to our China-Britain Business Council webinar on One Belt, One Road, New Opportunities in China and Beyond. Just to maybe set a little bit of the scene, I think One Belt, One Road, we've heard a lot about in the media over the last couple of weeks and months. It has the potential to be one of the most significant business events of our generation. It is something that covers 60 countries, 60% of the world's population, and about a third of the world's current GDP. And that perhaps is a very meaningful final statistic because it highlights the opportunities for growth, for commerce, for trade and investment as such a large part of the developing world is covered by this initiative. Now, the report that we're going to cover today or talk about was launched on the 23rd of September by the Chancellor during his visit to Urumqi. He was very, very positive in supporting this report, and I think it's been very meaningful to have this to hand over to the Chinese government and indeed to industry, both in the UK and in China. So what exactly is One Belt, One Road? Well, we're going to find out a lot about it. Jeff will introduce the specifics. But a lot of people say that it's a clever way for China to manage its overcapacity, to use up its foreign reserves in terms of outbound investment, for China to look at new markets. And indeed, the thirst and need for investment and trade with a lot of the countries along the route, and indeed a lot of parts of China, is enormous. So those opportunities are huge. However, there are some other issues with it. Is it just another government PR job, really? Is it just a fancy name plonked on top of something to make it sound good? There's a perception in the geopolitical sense that it's not too far away from something like the Marshall Plan. Many of the countries along this route are quite volatile. So will this actually be able to be done? Indeed, what will the neighbours think? How does a country like Russia, for instance, feel about China suddenly increasing its presence in countries that border it and countries that it has had traditionally a strong relationship? And finally, and perhaps most pertinently today, is will UK companies really have access to this? Or will it be Chinese companies with other Chinese companies moving their own labour in to do exactly as they please? So hopefully we'll be able to discuss a few of these questions today. So just to give a little bit of background on the China-Britain Business Council, for those of you who don't know who we are, the China-Britain Business Council is a leading organisation helping UK companies grow and develop their business in China. We help companies of all sizes and sectors, whether new entrants or established operations, to access the full potential of the fastest growing market in the world. Through more than 60 years of engagement, CBBC has built up exceptional connections with government and business across China. We deliver a range of practical services, including advice and consultancy, market research, event management, trade missions, support on exhibitions, from our 11 offices in the UK and 15 key locations across China. So that's just a little bit of a background of who we are. Just before we get going, I'd like to do a little bit of housekeeping if I could. This is an interactive session, so we do welcome companies to ask questions at any point. If you want to ask a question, you just type it in here in the area that I'm highlighting right now. That will pop up on my screen. If it's pertinent to the flow of Jeff and or Ingrid, I'll ask it at the time. Otherwise, we'll save it to the end. And if we don't get to it on the day, we'll be happy to get them to follow up with you afterwards. So just before we begin, I'd like, if you could please, for you to click on this button, raise your hand. If you could click on the raise your hand button, that will just ensure me that I am not a lonely man speaking out into the ether with nobody listening to me. Fantastic. Well done, class. All the hands are raised. Okay, I'm going to put everybody's hand back down again. Right, moving swiftly along. So just our presenter today, Jeff is one of our executive directors. He's based in China, based in Shanghai. His role of executive director covers the whole of China. He's a wealth of business management consulting, research and corporate training experience. His 20-year career includes trade and product marketing, business analysis, market analysis, international business development and financial management. He has 15 years experience working in the APAC region, with the last 6 in China, in the education, media, entertainment and sports and leisure sectors. Before Shanghai, he worked in London, Hong Kong, Singapore and Shenzhen. Ingrid will be joining him. Unfortunately, I don't have a bio for Ingrid, so Jeff will be doing that part for me. All right, fab. So just before I hand over to Jeff, I'd just like to ask a poll to everybody here. And if I could ask this simple question. If I could ask our colleagues, there's a couple of CBBC colleagues, not to answer this one because I'd be more interested in what our companies have to say. So I'm just going to launch this poll. I think One Belt, One Road will or is not likely to impact my work or company, might have some impact on my work company, will prove to be very impactful, or the magical I don't know. So if I could just ask people to click on their choice and then click the submit button at the end, and that will just give us some sense of where we feel our attendees are today. What your perception is of One Belt, One Road. While we're doing that, what I will do is find our speakers. Jeff, are you out there?
Hi, David. Yes, I am.
Fantastic. And Ingrid, are you out there?
Yes, I'm here.
Terrific. We have everybody. So let's just have a little look at our result of our poll. I'm going to share. I'm going to stop that, and I'm going to share the results with everybody. So as we can see there, a lot of I don't knows. I think there's still a lot of people trying to understand exactly what it is that this will mean for them. 27%, 41%, the majority might have some impact on their work. And what's interesting is 27% will believe it will be very impactful, which is quite interesting considering a lot of the structure and a lot of the sort of tangible planning is yet to be done on OBOR. So a lot of people think it'll be very meaningful. Jeff, I think we're over to you now.
Okay, thanks, David, and thanks, everybody. Good morning here in the UK. By the way, I'm actually in the UK this week rather than in China, but my colleague, Ingrid, who actually I'd like to take credit for this report, but I can't because Ingrid and our research team in China have done all the work. Ingrid is our economist based in Shanghai with me. And previously, she's worked for CBBC for the last 2 years, but previously she worked with PwC, also as an economist, and prior to that was working with the World Trade Organization, based in Shanghai, working with China on its free trade agreements with various other countries in the region, which actually is quite relevant to the developments under the One Belt, One Road initiative. David, can I see the slides, please?
Okay.
Thank you.
Everything should be okay for you now.
So thank you to everybody for joining. Well, my job will be to sort of introduce the context to why CBBC has undertaken this research and why we think it might be of interest to British businesses, not only in the short term, but very much in the long term. And then Ingrid will take you through the sort of large parts of the report before I will then sort of look at sectors of interest to British companies and where the opportunities might lie. Firstly, what is this One Belt, One Road initiative you might have heard of? It is more than one belt and one road. The belt refers to a number of land routes across vast amounts of territory, as David had said, connecting many countries from China all the way over to Europe. Ingrid will talk about the specific routes. This is not just one route. There are multiple routes and multiple corridors that are being developed. The road, ironically, doesn't refer to a road. It's the old maritime Silk Road, and enhancing that road through the expansion of shipping routes, new shipping routes, the construction and development of major nodal shipping ports along the way, connecting up various countries in Southeast Asia, South Asia, East Asia, East Africa, through into the Mediterranean Sea. This is an initiative which was launched by Xi Jinping in 2013. Therefore, it's still relatively early stages for this initiative, and it's something that we should see very much in a long-term, 10, 15, 20-year context. The way the Chinese and various academics have positioned it is that this is the third step in China's reintegration as a global trading superpower. The first being the opening up phase that was President Deng Xiaoping's initiative in the 1980s when China began to open up to the rest of the world in terms of trading. The second being China's introduction to the World Trade Organization, WTO, in the 1990s, and then One Belt One Road is the next stage of this reintroduction and this reemergence of China on a global stage, where China begins to be a major player in all aspects of global trade, in terms of investment in overseas business, as well as importing and exporting of major parts of the global economy. As you know, this is already happening. China is very much increasing its importance on a global stage. So, as David pointed out, what is this? Is it just another campaign? Is it a way to galvanize internally the Chinese provinces in terms of their long-term investment, or is it something more than that? Next slide, David, please. What we did, and the research has been done in conjunction with the British Embassy in Beijing, and we looked at it really in terms of what it means for British companies. The focus of our research this time was primarily inside of China, looking at the opportunities, highlighting certain provinces and certain subsectors that Britain could engage with, and maybe just identifying what that might mean for British businesses in the long term. The overriding objectives that the Chinese government have put on this is to continue its trends around what they call Go West, which is encouraging international trade, international business development in Western provinces. And so the One Belt One Road, in a way, is increasing that, is encouraging that by encouraging Western provinces to reach out internationally through these various corridors and trading routes. So it is increasing that prosperity, a long-term vision to increase the prosperity in undeveloped parts of China. And through that, with the infrastructure investment, massively increasing the connectivity, city to city, province to province, rail routes, road routes through this vast part of China. And also then those roads, as Ingrid will touch on in more detail, those land routes and rail routes that are being connected between other parts of the world, through Southeast Asia, through South Asia, through Central Asia, up into Russia and over into Eastern Europe, and down into the Middle East and over to East Africa, is meaning that China is increasingly integrated and connected up in a way that we're very used to in Europe and the West, and is connecting itself up rather than perhaps relying so much on the more traditional shipping routes. Other benefits, as David touched on, perhaps more sort of domestically minded, or sort of perhaps in China's self-interest. Of course, as the global economy slows down, of course, as its normal trading partners for its exports in Europe and the US are cutting back. And as we've heard in the news, there's lots of talk around sort of China's overcapacity in certain sectors. It is looking for ways to reinvest and redeploy some of its capacity and some of its substantial amounts of dollar surplus that they have at the moment. That makes sense, therefore, to invest it in places and develop markets where there are opportunities, particularly in countries, say in Southeast Asia, where already is quite an advanced economy, and there are opportunities, therefore, for China to find new markets for its products and services too. Another thing we shouldn't ignore is clearly, of course, in some of those areas, and particularly with sort of global issues in the Middle East, it's keen to ensure that there are multiple supply routes for its very necessary imports of various energy sources and natural resources. And through this, it will help it expand and develop and enhance a lot of those supply routes too. So, as well as the more kind of explicit objectives, we have recognized some of the more implicit or sort of more China-oriented benefits too. Next slide, David, please. At this point, I'm going to hand over to Ingrid, who will talk you through in more detail various elements outside of China and province by province of what the research covers. Ingrid, over to you.
Yes, thanks, Jeff. In this report, we have identified the business opportunities both inside China and outside China. We are trying to interpret opportunities for British companies, at least to raise their awareness of the what OBOR it means and where the opportunities are. So for outside of China, there are 6 economic corridors which are designed to be developed to constitute the frame of the OBOR outside China. These 6 economic corridors are listed here. They include New Euro-Asia Land Bridge Corridor, which is going to be the logistic gateway from China to Europe, and also the China-Mongolia-Russia Corridor. It is designed to link the OBOR initiative with the Russia's railway plan and also the domestic plan of the Mongolia. And the third one is China Central Asia and East Asia Corridor, which is going to be the oil land and also natural gas import gateway for China. And the fourth one is China Indo-China Peninsula Corridor, which focuses on the development with ASEAN countries. And next one is China-Pakistan Corridor. This is the one with highly expected to be to have the priority to develop, because of the China-Pakistan good relationship, and it also can provide a shortcut to Middle East for China. But there's one thing needs to be noted is that the China-Pakistan is probably will go through the territory where is Kashmir, where India may claim their territories. So it's still an area with some of the uncertain reasons there. The last one is Bangladesh, China, India, Myanmar corridor, which focuses on the development with South Asia, especially India. Currently, there are, because of this economic corridor, all of these economic corridors are developing. One of the most important infrastructure project is the railway network. So currently, China already has 8 international freight trains. These 8 trains starts from both West China and Middle China, and also East China via Xinjiang province, and further go to Europe. So this kind of international freight train has provided a faster way than sea route, and also a cheaper way than air route. So next slide. Next slide. Yes, and also this is from the sea route. So the sea route is actually designed to strengthen the sea trade through ocean, especially for the province in South China and Southeast China, like the province Guangdong, Fujian, and Hainan. For this province to build the network of key ports to develop the sea trade with the countries along the sea route, including ASEAN countries, South Asia, Southeast Asia, and then further go to Europe. Next slide. Yes. In this slide, we're going to talk about the new funding sources because according to the IMF, only 6 countries out of the 7 countries out of the 64 countries along the routes are developed countries. So the majorities are still developing countries. In that case, so the infrastructure demand is substantial. So China has launched two new fundings, that AIIB and the Silk Road Fund, to meet the huge demand of the infrastructure. Here in this slide, we have listed the features of these two fundings. But I just want to mention that the differences between these two fundings is that AIIB is basically a bank, so it still has the functions of the bank, like the loan function. So, and it also said that AIIB would start to offering loans to foreign countries in next January. But for Silk Road Fund, it's a fund. So the major function of it is to invest into the projects, especially the projects designed for the OBOR initiative. And also it's funding a major from the Chinese capital. Next slide.
Ingrid, just a quick question. How likely, or do we know yet, how likely, or how easy is it going to be for, say, international companies to access money from the Asia Infrastructure Investment Bank or the Silk Road Fund? You know, if they have big projects, how will they go about getting funding, or is that clear yet?
I think they have their own valuation system. And for example, the Silk Road Fund, their motivation is to get the profits. So they need to analyze or assess whether the project has a profit.
Sure.
David, can I just add something there?
Sure.
I mean, I think one of the things to note is that Britain was one of the earliest countries to sign up to the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, the first in Europe, and it also, I think, was given a lot of credit from the Chinese side, and I think therefore Britain has a significant role to play. I know that we are involved in the various processes right now in terms of setting the processes and the procedures and the rules of engagement for businesses. It's certainly not there to prioritize Chinese projects over other countries' projects, and it very much will be focusing on multilateral projects. So I think it is a fund that British companies, I mean, we're talking about massive major infrastructure investment projects here, so clearly it's for British companies to identify the projects. And I understand from PwC, I was talking to a couple of days ago, that this amount of money would only account for about 10% of what they've estimated in terms of the infrastructure investment projects that are part of the overall One Belt One Road initiative.
All right, thank you for that. Ingrid, I'll head back to you and I'll move to the next slide.
Yes. Yeah, in this report, we have identified the opportunities inside China, province by province. Actually, almost every province have made their development plan to implement the OBOR initiative. But in this report, we highlighted 13 provinces for the potential opportunities. And these 13 provinces, we covered from northwest China to southwest China and also southeast China, including Xinjiang, Gansu, Ningxia, Shanxi in northwest, and Sichuan, Chongqing, Yunnan in southwest. Also Fujian, Guangdong, Hainan, Jiangsu, and Zhejiang in south and east China. But in this webinar, we just select 5 key provinces to share our findings. Next slide. Yeah, this is a matrix we made that includes both the opportunities within the provinces and also the sectors. For example, we basically think that the sectors like infrastructure and financial and professional services and also agriculture have opportunities everywhere in all of the provinces. And also for the manufacturing and energy and e-commerce, can also find a lot of opportunities in different provinces in China. For those icons, small icons, it means that we think there are opportunities, but less clear at this early stage. Next slide. Yes. So take Xinjiang, for example. Xinjiang has been designed as the core area of the land route because of its key geographical position. Because Xinjiang shares the borders with 8 countries, including Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, and Pakistan. And also we mentioned the China-Pakistan economic corridor earlier. And it starts from Xinjiang because they're going it plans to have a railway start from Kashgar inside Xinjiang to Pakistan. And also in infrastructure sector, Xinjiang plans to build 3 passageways to link China with Kazakhstan, Pakistan, and Russia via Xinjiang province. And also Xinjiang strengthened the construction of a provincial network of roads and motorways. So there are huge opportunities in the infrastructure sector inside Xinjiang. And also for the energy sector, Xinjiang's the importance of Xinjiang also lies in its energy reserves, because Xinjiang has about 40% of China's coal and also about 80% of mineral resources. So and Xinjiang is also developing the big energy pipeline projects. This includes the China Central Asia Natural Gas Pipeline and also the West-East Gas Transition Project. This one is to aim to deliver the gas from west part of China, Xinjiang, through Middle China, then at the end goes to Shanghai and East China, because the east part of China are lack of energy and gas. So, and also in finance and professional sectors, there are several key cities in Xinjiang like Urumqi, Horgoz, or the Kashgar. Kashgar is in south part of Xinjiang. So all of these key cities are aiming to develop their financial services, including cross-border RMB settlement and offshore RMB transactions. But these are still in the very early age. Last week, I just visited Horgoz and talked about the financial development plan with them. It seems they just have the general idea, but have no detailed plan how to develop step by step. So it's a good opportunity for British companies to participate in the development of the local financial and professional services, and also can impact their local policy. And also the last sector we think the opportunities are the logistics, because Xinjiang is developing the international distribution center. As I mentioned earlier, the 8 international freight trains are all via Xinjiang to Middle Asia, then go to the Europe countries. So Xinjiang could be the logistic hub for all of these trains to distribute their goods from Xinjiang and go to different countries. Next slide. Yeah, this is Shanxi province. Shanxi is the ancient Silk Road start point. So and it's now are developing its transport and logistics sectors. For example, and also the international freight trains I mentioned earlier. There's also one train from Xi'an to Europe, via Xinjiang and Moscow. So and also Xi'an, the Xi'an International Trade and Logistics Park, and also provides bounded policy for companies registered inside the park. And it also plans to develop the e-commerce center. Previously, in these western provinces in China, because of the logistics infrastructure are not well developed, and the e-commerce platform are not exists. So the products for the UK or other countries are hard to access to West China. But now, with the development of the e-commerce platform and also the logistic infrastructure, so it is expected that the British companies can take advantage of this kind of development to deliver their products from the UK to China, especially to this further to west part of China. And also, similarly, Shanxi is also developing its financial services. For example, Xixian New District is a very well-known district inside of this province. So they are competing with other similar districts. So they are also trying to develop the two-way cross-border RMB pooling services. Similar to the Xinjiang, there's also a lot of opportunities in financial and professional services. And also, Xi'an is a major tourist destination because of its ancient history and culture. And it also plans to expand as a regional hub. So this will provide opportunities for companies from cultural and creative sectors.
Ingrid, can I just add something? I was in Xi'an recently, and I think Xi'an is a very big city. We're talking a city of 8 to 10 million people, but relatively less developed than some of the other major cities in China. However, it has a number of competitive advantages, as Ingrid mentioned. It has those historical trading routes. It's a very sort of open culture and internationally open culture, whether that's through tourism or just generally sort of a cultural diversity there. It also is sort of recognized as one of the major cities for the education sector, some of the best universities in China there. And therefore that lends itself for sort of high-tech, high-end engineering businesses too. And a number of businesses have already been successful there, particularly in the aerospace sector. A number of those major aerospace aerospace organizations, including international ones, have a lot of their R&D in this city and province. So I think in that way, although it perhaps is not as developed as some of the other cities that we'll talk about in this report, it has great potential both in terms of its location, its history and culture, and its people.
Okay, thanks. And next slide. Okay, Chongqing City. Chongqing is a municipal city located in Sichuan province, but it's also an important area on the land route. It has ambition to develop into a center of logistics and business outsourcing and e-commerce. And also the Liangjiang new area, it aims to develop into a major logistics hubs. And also here we mentioned the Chongqing, Xinjiang, Europe freight train. In Chinese it's called 旅行欧 because it starts from Chongqing and via Xinjiang and finally reached to Europe. And also it's this kind of the freight rates, it's delivered it's almost full loaded with the goods from China, including the goods like the vehicles and computers go to Europe. And also it gets a subsidy from the government. But when it comes back from Europe to China, it's almost empty. But it also provides opportunities for companies who want to deliver products from the UK or other countries along the routes to China. And for the sorry?
Go on, you go first. Sorry.
Oh, for the infrastructure sector, Chongqing is expected to invest about 120 billion pounds on infrastructure by 2020, and this mainly are in high-speed railway projects and the construction of the trade routes. Besides of that, Chongqing is also continuing its construction of urbanization and the projects, and also like including the social infrastructure projects, and also it's developing the city clusters. And regarding the advanced manufacturing, Chongqing has highlighted certain pillar industries to develop. This including the ICT and also automotive sectors, and also the R&D centers. So especially for this kind of province, they are kind of very open. So they are looking for the technology transfer from foreign countries or foreign companies. So British companies with high tech can find opportunities to cooperate with them, and especially to establish R&D centers for them. And
so I was going to add, Ingrid. I mean, on a recent visit to Chongqing, I mean, every time we go there, I'm struck by how much they are embracing the One Belt One Road initiative. Chongqing, I think, has advantages that it directly reports to Beijing. It's one of the few city-level municipalities, including Shanghai, Beijing, Tianjin, that reports directly into Beijing. It's a pretty densely populated, 35 million people in that area. It's seen rapid development over the last 10 to 15 years. It's enhanced its manufacturing capability, particularly in the consumer electronics sector. It's invested heavily and continue to invest heavily in its infrastructure, particularly its urban infrastructure. Its geographical location on major rail routes, high-speed rail routes already going through there, and the plans to link it up, particularly with Southeast Asia, are very attractive to make it a major sort of Southwest China logistics hub. However, the topology, the geography, and the rapid urbanization, and the fact it has quite an aging population, all brings lots of challenges, whether it's pollution or healthcare or sort of social infrastructure needs. And I think that therefore those challenges bring opportunities for British firms as this city-level province, sort of municipality, goes through its next phase of development and embraces the One Belt One Road initiative. It wants to move up the value chain in manufacturing, develop itself as a major service center, logistics service center for international trade. But it's got challenges around pollution, environment, water, waste treatment, etc., which plays very much in all those areas into the hands of British businesses.
Thanks, Jeff. I've got a question quickly to you, Ingrid. What exactly do you mean by social infrastructure? I think a couple of people have actually pinged that in. When you talk of infrastructure, I'm not quite sure what that is. Could you flesh that out a little bit more?
social infrastructure, it could include like cultural or, for example,
Shall I answer?
Not a very good
Hospitals,
example.
Hospitals, schools, the whole sort of urban infrastructure around parks and cultural buildings.
Even karaoke, something like this.
Lovely, I get
it's
the point.
It's not the basic infrastructure, Okay. For Guangdong province, Guangdong is in South China, and it's developing a world-class port cluster because there are some key cities are ports. So these key cities include Guangzhou, Shenzhen, Shantou, Zhuhai, and because it's going to cooperate with Hong Kong because it's geographically it's close to Hong Kong. So by taking advantage of the cross-border infrastructure and also the financial and professional services in Hong Kong, Guangdong can integrate it better into Hong Kong and Macau. So it's now developing the a big area called Guangdong, Hong Kong, Macau Big Bay area. So, and it's also has a lot of preferential policy because of CEPA. And also Guangdong has just approved the free trade zone. Currently, there are 4 free trade zones in China. This includes Shanghai, Guangdong, Fujian, and also Tianjin. But for the Guangdong Free Trade Zone, it includes 3 areas we just listed here. It includes Qianhai, Guangzhou, and Zhuhai. As I mentioned, they can provide some preferential policies for companies registered inside the free trade zone. Qianhai area, I just visited them like 2 weeks ago. They can provide preferential tax, including corporate tax and individual tax, for companies and individuals who work inside the free trade zone. For example, for qualified companies, especially from the sectors like logistics and ICT or technology sectors, they can enjoy 15% corporate tax, which is much lower than the normal level because the normal level in China is 25%. And it also provides a competitive level with the Hong Kong and Singapore. Hong Kong is about 16.5%, and Hong Kong and Singapore impose 17% of the corporate tax. For individual tax, it's also much lower than the normal level. And also for qualified talent, in Qianhai can enjoy 15% individual. And they can also get some subsidies from the Shenzhen government. And so this is a free trade zone policy. And for the energy and resources, Guangdong is developing in its energy and resources, and just 2 weeks ago, in last month, China General Nuclear Power Group, which is based in Shenzhen, just announced an acquisition agreement, which covers 13 clean energy projects in 5 countries. Most are in Southeast Asia. So this is because Guangdong province is encouraging their companies to go abroad to invest in the energy sector. And also, it also encourages the outbound investment in plantation, in agriculture projects. For example, the banana and sugarcane plantation in Southeast Asia, and also it encouraged their companies to go to ASEAN countries to help the local development of fishing and agricultural projects.
Ingrid, if I could add something about Guangdong province.
Yeah.
Guangdong province is one of the most advanced already. Major first-tier cities of Guangzhou and Shenzhen are up there with Beijing and Shanghai. Its history and connections to Hong Kong are probably familiar to all of us, and the concept of a sort of greater Guangdong, Hong Kong, Macau Bay area creates a population of around 80 to 90 million people in an integrated city cluster, which it would be second to none in the world. It's already very well advanced in terms of its international businesses being located there. A lot of companies have, through Hong Kong, have also in Shenzhen and Guangzhou, their sort of Asia-Pacific regional headquarters. It's already got a very vibrant professional services sector. And also many of the Chinese large companies who are already on the international stage, companies like Huawei and Lenovo, are based there. So I think what Guangdong's role in this One Belt One Road is perhaps more about the sort of international investment opportunities that it's looking for, and being an international partner for Britain and providing new opportunities inside of China and in third countries. Sorry, Ingrid, back to you.
Thanks, Jeff. Ingrid, I'm just a little conscious of time, so maybe we can keep moving reasonably quickly. Thanks.
Yeah. For Fujian province, it's a core area, a core province in the Sea Road because its position. So Fujian is accelerating its construction of high-speed railway network to connect the key cities within the provinces. And also it focuses on the development and cooperation with ASEAN countries across marine industry sectors. And also Fujian has been it's developing its agriculture and fishery base within its provinces and also outside. So it's looking for the cooperation with countries like Indonesia, and also in the development of the marine tourism and processing, and also distribution of the aquatic products, R&D, etc. So Fujian is basically focused on the development with the Sea Road countries. So that's my part. I'm going to hand over to Jeff to focus on the sector part.
Thanks, Ingrid. As you can see, I mean, that's just 5 provinces out of, well, 13 that we've covered, 18 that have been highlighted already. So there's many opportunities. And the one thing that we've learned from doing this research is the need to get granular, that we've just skipped over the top, and our next phase of research and working with British companies, we'd like to get your input and your insights and your questions so that we can go back to those provinces and city level conversations to then begin to identify specific opportunities for British businesses. But to sort of bring it from a slightly different perspective rather than looking at it, and this is both inside of China and outside of China, I just wanted to sort of summarize some of the key areas of interest on a sector-by-sector basis. Firstly, I think obviously phase 1 of this large plan sort of centers around infrastructure investment and infrastructure projects. So companies that have already an interest in China or business in China and or in some of those third countries in sort of rail construction, ports especially. We've had a number of British companies already successfully cooperating with Chinese firms on port construction or development or design projects in Sri Lanka, Indonesia, and East Africa. Airports, of course, and this social infrastructure, particularly when it's sort of advanced social infrastructure requiring green technology solutions or environmentally friendly solutions or smart city solutions. I think British businesses have many opportunities to play in that area. Another thing I wanted to pick up on was PPP, public-private partnerships. As we said earlier, this is going to require huge amounts of investment, and particularly at the city level. Many of these cities have gone through quite a lot of investment already, and are facing sort of quite high levels of debt, and are clearly becoming increasingly aware of the need to invest more smartly, and therefore are very open-minded to looking at commercial partnerships. Similarly to what we've done here when we're building major infrastructure projects in the UK. And the UK is recognised by China and other countries as a sort of world leader in developing public-private partnership arrangements to investment. And we've done an awful lot of work, CBBC, and working with the embassy to promote British competences, and it's been very much welcomed through training programs there. And I do know that there'll be an awful lot more work in the area of PPP. PPP involves everybody from accountants to lawyers to analysts to design, construction engineers, completely through the supply chain, even down to the operating side. And I think this area will be a vast opportunity for British competencies to be clustered together to promote to Chinese provinces and cities across the country. Next one, David. A few things I wanted to highlight within the financial and professional services sector. Clearly, with this amount of infrastructure investment, it's going to require very complex, particularly when we're talking about multiple country investment projects. Britain's financial services sector is very well respected in China. We've got the Hong Kong stock system connect initiatives underway, Hong Kong to Shanghai, Hong Kong to London, London to Shanghai. And if all of this develops, then the opportunities for businesses to trade through the British London-based stock exchanges. We also have the London Metal Exchange, who's already signed deals with all the banks across China, so that any commodity transactions can go through the London Metal Exchange. London is already the second largest trading centre for the RMB offshore after Hong Kong, and so London is already very well placed to be the sort of transaction hub. And all of this requires clearly the financial services sector, the legal services sector behind it. I think in the infrastructure projects, the major infrastructure projects or the major sort of country projects, another area for Britain to stress its strengths is that when China is working in third countries, it really needs global players, companies that are very well versed in handling international trade contracts or international investment contracts, and British consultants, law firms, auditors, people that can handle these kind of complex commercial contracts very much have substantial business opportunities in this space. Next one, David. We touched on rail. China's investment in the rail sector has been more rapid than anywhere else in the world. It is amazing to see how quickly they have invested not only in the infrastructure but also in the train technologies, to the point now where its train technologies are, as I'm sure many of you are aware, being exported to many countries, potentially even to the UK. UK companies are already partnering up with Chinese firms in the supply chain and also in the sort of infrastructure projects. I think as China works in third countries, again, this whole rail network for companies anywhere in that supply chain, there's going to be vast opportunities. The aviation sector, again, China has gone through a substantial acceleration of its aviation sector, both the building of airports and the sort of the new build of airplanes too. I think British business opportunities in that area are growing rapidly. The maritime sector, we talked before about the development of ports, both in China, like in Fujian province, but also in third countries. And China's demand for specialist equipment, specialist ships, specialist transport equipment, specialist marine exploration vehicles, high-tech equipment. Again, some of British companies, particularly based in Scotland and the northeast of England, have great opportunities to leverage this rapid development in this sector. Next one, David. Looking sort of at advanced engineering, the automotive sector, clearly China has already got a vast, I think it's the world's leading market now per volume per year sales of cars. The sector is getting increasingly sophisticated. It's not just imports now. I think many Chinese companies, Chinese car makers are very advanced. One area I think China will rapidly develop is the hybrid and the electric vehicle sector. But I think there are opportunities for companies, and I think this goes across all of these advanced engineering sectors. There's opportunities for British companies to enter into more complex arrangements with Chinese firms, looking at setting up joint R&D centres, perhaps in the UK, or complex sort of third country arrangements in how to work together to provide new sort of advanced solutions. China's also looking at its whole manufacturing sector and how it can move up the value chain rapidly. And I think this whole area, as it becomes more sophisticated and it looks to sell into third countries, it could be that British firms are partnering with Chinese firms in the supply chain as they're manufacturing and selling into countries in Africa, India, and Southeast Asia. Next one, David. I think another one to highlight, and we've talked about it quite a lot, is around logistics, international trading logistics, but also e-commerce logistics. Ingrid mentioned a number of cities, but Chongqing, Xi'an, and Chengdu in West China, and also Hangzhou, which is already very well established in East China, are kind of major cities for e-commerce platforms, and they've got great ambitions to be kind of hubs for cross-border e-commerce trading. So that is enabling, and this might be for more British companies looking to import into the region, the companies that currently would be looking at shipping routes or air freight, and that may make it completely prohibitive to import into the region, or your cost structures are such that you're not competitive. I think looking at the rail routes and looking at these major inland e-commerce platforms and trading hubs that are beginning to be developed in some of these inland cities, and then looking to use these as platforms then so you could go into Chongqing and then out through into Southeast Asia without having to go through customs clearance and so on. So they're kind of cross-border e-commerce platforms. And then companies, British companies in software, in technology, in applications, and so on, should very much look at China as a very advanced e-commerce marketplace. Next one, David. And then I think secondary sectors, and I will skip across these, and forgive me if one of these sectors is very much your interest, but in certain of these regions, particularly in northwest China, but also in sort of Xinjiang, Ningxia, Shanxi, Gansu, Sichuan province, the big challenge they have is that their agriculture is fairly small scale or inefficient. And as part of this whole large Go West urbanization, investment in infrastructure, that people need to be fed. And I think one of the greatest challenges for China, and I think this presents a great opportunity for some British companies, is around improvements in the efficiency, industrializing farming, and bringing in opportunities, whether that's in standards, testing of food quality, improving the manufacturing systems to enhance the productivity of farming, improving the food processing and storage and distribution, technology and operations, and around things in sort of high-end bioscience and veterinary science to improve the productivity and outputs of food farming. So I think this again, particularly for British companies, may well there be some specialist areas there. Next day, please. In the energy and resources sector, I mean, clearly, as we talked before, there's a great need for China to enhance its and protect its needs for oil supply, and also in the mining areas, particularly up in Xinjiang province. China is also leading the way in renewables, so it's got a huge build plan for the nuclear sector. It's already a world leader in the solar energy sector, and is looking to increasingly develop its wind farms and offshore wind. And some of this technology, at the high end of this technology, whether it's sort of wind farm blades or the way to store and distribute energy once it's collected, are certain things that Britain has great skills in. And so as this expands and advance, and not only, again, within China, but as China then looks to invest and develop these opportunities in third countries, that then plays, again, to some specific British strengths. Next one, David. And I think I just want to finally touch on this sector. And I think this is an example of many other sectors in the kind of more services and tertiary space, whether it's education, creative industries, cultural sector, and so on. I think healthcare and life sciences already are presenting great opportunities. As China expands its urbanization programs and also invests heavily in its social infrastructure, and as China's population is aging, and there's increasing demands on healthcare provision and challenges around medicines and technologies to support that, whether that's digital health because of the vast regions we're talking about in West China, or remote sort of medicine provision and so on. I think there are many opportunities in this sector for Britain. Now, Britain is already doing very well, but I think it will continue to expand over the next 10 years in this sector. And as I say, I think this goes for the education sector, for the creative and cultural industries sector too, as China continues to go through this urbanization program and then looks to invest in other countries too. I think there'll be many more opportunities here. Next one, please. So in conclusion, I'd just like to reiterate that this is a long-term vision that China has. They see it as the third step in their re-emergence as a major global power, as it invests in third countries and develops world-class infrastructure and trading routes and trading platforms for international businesses, for Chinese businesses to become sort of global players. I do believe if this does if this is implemented successfully over the next 10, 15, 20 years, it is a global game changer. Traditional supply routes, traditional business models will be impacted, and therefore it could have an impact on us all as British businesses. I think the opportunities in the short term, perhaps yes, more in the financial services and the infrastructure sectors. But in the long term, I think it will ripple out across pretty much every industry sector. I think the important thing is that Britain doesn't think that this doesn't affect us, that we're at the end of those supply chains, we're at the end, and it's not going to impact on us. I think some of our core competencies and our competitive advantages in certain sectors are right at the heart of what China needs for this long-term One Belt, One Road vision. And so when we've been going around China talking to local governments, local city partners, they're very much welcome conversations with Britain. And we've been positioning ourselves, and it's been received very well, that UK can be the perfect partner for Chinese companies across many aspects of this One Belt, One Road initiative. Thank you, David.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Jeff and Ingrid. Just please type in your questions. Just before we do, I have a couple to go, but just before we do, if you want to download the report that we're talking about, you can click on that link, and that should bring you there. As you can see, that's a picture of our chairman, Lord Sassoon, forcibly handing President Xi one of our reports. I think he stood there until President Xi took it. No, I'm kidding. But he did have the opportunity to introduce the report directly to demonstrate that the UK is quite serious about getting involved and engaging in One Belt, One Road. First question I have here from Michelle to both of you, Jeff and Ingrid, but maybe Jeff, you want to kick it off. Who are the key partners in China in terms of government and regional government?
This is taken very seriously by China and is a sort of state level sort of initiative. So the key partners, and we had the very same question we asked to the Ministry of Commerce only a couple of weeks ago when Lord Sassoon met with one of the leaders of the Ministry of Commerce, and he said, well, actually, it's multiple government departments. For the Ministry of Commerce is very much sort of leading on international trade, but then there is the NDRC, the National Development Reform Commission, which will be taking a lead on country-to-country initiatives. What I would say, however, is that this sort of national level picture, and I think as Ingrid's presentation illustrated, you need to get granular, you need to get down to city level, not even provincial level, and deal directly with mayor's offices and the ministries of commerce, the departments of commerce, and the NDRC departments at a city level and a provincial level, because the specifics will be held there. The broader sort of big picture things will be done nationally.
Okay, thanks for that. I have another question from Susan. Will UK companies really have a chance to get involved in One Belt, One Road? So I suppose this goes to the very heart of, whether or not it's going to be Chinese companies, Chinese laborers, etc., Chinese contractors and service providers. Do we genuinely believe that the UK can get involved?
I'm happy to answer that, Ingrid. Yeah, of course. I mean, clearly, only if we have some competitive advantage. It's very much seen from the Chinese side that this is a sort of a global initiative. It's not something that China's doing on its own. It's certainly something that they need, and they recognise their limitations in certain of these sectors that we've highlighted. And so, I think if you're in certain sectors that Britain is strong at, it's going to give you the opportunity to do more with China. It's not going to radically change. It's not like they're going to say, well, we're going to employ British contractors in Pakistan if we're 3 times more expensive than a Chinese contractor or a local Pakistani contractor. But if we're coming along with advantages around understanding global marketplaces or providing a global standard, and I think that's one of the other things that China recognizes in this One Belt, One Road initiative, is that as it's investing in these infrastructure projects, as it's moving its own manufacturing upscale, it recognizes that it needs to operate at sort of global standards. And if Britain is able to position itself as this is a global standard in whatever industry you're in, I think that China is very much taking that seriously.
Thanks.
And may I add?
Absolutely, sorry? Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. Also, from the roadmap, we can see that it seems that UK is not in the along the routes, but for China, it's not exclude any country from the development or implement of the OBR initiative. Instead, every country's participation are welcome, especially for the UK. And China and UK are now in a very good relationship, the good area. So it's really a good time and opportunities for British companies to take this advantage and the chance to participate in the implement of the OBOR, especially UK it enjoys the world-leading experience and technology in a lot of areas which Chinese companies lack of. So actually the cooperation between British company and Chinese companies are the good opportunities for both sides to benefit. But the most important thing is to identify the qualified Chinese companies to cooperate with.
Okay, so hang on, Ingrid. So your point, because on the one sense, Jeff is saying you need to call the mayor and the Chamber of Commerce, but on the other hand, you're saying you have to contact the companies. So, and I have a question here from Gary, and he's saying, how can SMEs, for instance, engage and get involved in this? But it seems all extremely unclear still about how to go about any of this. So is it companies you need to know? Is it government? Is it a bit of both? What do you think?
Oh, it's definitely both. And one of the things that we've taken away from this is that, yes, it's difficult for British businesses to come in alone. And what we can do, I think, as our next step is to, particularly for smaller companies, is to cluster together across a number of specific subsectors, cluster together British competencies. And this has happened already. I know UKTI, CBBC, the embassy are doing this in the infrastructure space. To cluster together British competencies so that we can present that both nationally in China but also locally where we see the specific opportunities arise. So if you're a smaller company with some sort of very specific competitive advantage or sort of global leading technology, please follow up with us, and we're looking to cluster together a dozen or so specific subsectors that we can then present across China where we see the opportunities lie. Okay. One thing I wanted to say about the last question, David, is, and I don't think it's been said, and it needs to be said, is that although this is all about, we've been sort of promoting lots of opportunities, we are talking about many countries that have border conflicts. We have countries where corruption is an issue. We have countries where it's very challenging to do business. And one of my embassy colleagues who's been with me recently has been saying, although this provides us with lots of opportunities, common sense still prevails, good business practice still prevails. Do your due diligence, contact the embassy, contact organizations like CBBC or whoever they may be in those third countries before you get on an airplane and start flying in there and saying, right, I want to do business in Kazakhstan to do with a Chinese firm.
Sure.
Please,
yeah.
Be sensible.
And further to that, I've got a question from Frank, and I think it extends what you're saying. Do the other countries on One Belt, One Road want this? And it's a fair question. Of course, everybody would like cheap finance or low interest finance, or everybody would like new infrastructure. But I mean, it's not for the love of the country that China is doing this. So do the countries along these routes, are they sort of signed up? Has there been a signing ceremony, all of that kind of thing?
Yes, I mean, I think, as I said at the beginning, this, they're taking a long-term vision here, China. And one of the things, this is not a cooperation agreement that people need to sign up to. This is China sort of offering out an initiative, but sort of there has to be sort of bilateral agreements, country by country, along the route. And China's, as always with these things, is taking a long-term approach. So its first 2-3 years has been very much about engaging with various countries along the route, and signing up bilateral agreements, whether that's on just general terms or on specific projects. As Ingrid mentioned with Pakistan, but there's the same with the Central Asian countries. Do they want it? Well, I think many of them are being realistic about their development plans. If their major trading partner is China, and they need to invest in their infrastructure, and there's funding available, and they are looking at their long-term potential. This might be not only for their trade with China, but their trade in global supply chains themselves, if they become a major player or a major node on this One Belt, One Road initiative. Most of them are sensibly embracing it. Okay. I'm sure there are a few, there's not everybody in the region is China's best friend. So I'm sure there's a few obvious countries where it's going to be harder to persuade them to, or encourage them to embrace. And I would just say that this is not China sort of throwing its weight around. This is China setting a vision and saying, we're willing to invest, we're willing to accelerate your own sort of country's development, because we can see the long-term benefits for China and other countries too. And yeah, sure, you're right. They're not doing it just for the greater good of the world. Clearly, there's a domestic benefit too.
Okay, I'm conscious a little of time. So, Jeff, I'm going to leave it to you to give the last word. Our listeners online, whatever size of company or sector that they are, as of lunchtime, what is it that they have to do to ensure that their company is at least as best positioned as it could be to take advantage of these opportunities should they come along? What should they do from lunchtime?
Read the report more thoroughly than our quick 1 hour snap through it. Get in touch with me, Ingrid, David, or one of our business advisors in one of the cities across the UK or in China. We have many sector specialists if that's your best starting point. I can introduce you to other people at the embassy and UKTI in China, and we're working on a number of projects. What I want to do next is, as I say, this is the first of many bits of work. What I want us to do next is to identify those dozen or so subsectors that we can then cluster together and create some kind of specific push into China, and also perhaps one of those two key countries around the region. Please engage with us. We're going to do this for the long haul too. Then come to us with questions about your specific needs or specific issues and areas, and we'll build those into the next bit of work that we're going to do. Ingrid and I will continue to do this, looking at those 13 provinces and cities within those provinces, and also identifying a few other cities and provinces to go at. We will prioritise certain sectors over others. That was kind of, I guess, natural from the way we did the presentation. But we are sort of open to lots of British businesses coming to us and saying, I'd like to look at that. But we're looking to cluster together many British companies so that we can then go out and present them across China.
All right. Well, thanks for that. Okay, so thank you very much to both our presenters, to Jeff and to Ingrid. Please feel free to comment, get back to us. You'll receive an email 24 hours after this session, which will give you a link to rewatch it. If you'd like the PDF, please feel free to contact us. Also, that's pretty much it for today. If we didn't get to your questions online, I'll happily pass them to Jeff and to Ingrid, and they can follow up afterwards. So please do download the report. Please do contact us and ask us more. We are heavily involved in this area, and we want to position UK companies as best as possible to take advantage of the opportunities that may come out of One Belt, One Road over the coming, and this is the key thing, 5, 10, 20 years. This is a long game, so everybody should be aware of that. So that's it from me today. Thanks very much, and I wish you all happy China business. Have a great day. Bye-bye.